Welcome back to the deep dive, where we take your sources and pull out the most interesting stuff. Today we're going to be talking about something that you probably do all the time, which is posting on social media. But we're going a little deeper today. We're going to look at a process model that's been designed to streamline, maybe even automate how organizations handle this whole social media posting thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, when you think about hitting that post button, it seems so simple, but it can actually be this whole big workflow, especially when you're talking about uh, companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got this video here from Process Pitch.
Uh-huh.
Um, and in the video, they're actually building and demoing a social media posting process using software called Camunda.
Yeah, it's pretty neat actually. They're essentially making a visual representation of all the steps involved, kind of like a supercharged flowchart.
Okay, so walk us through this workflow. What are the key steps that they highlight?
Well, they start with a simple scenario. Someone creates a post, right? It could be text, an image, a video, whatever. And the first step is review. Someone's got to make sure that this post, that it fits with the company's message, their branding, you know?
Right. You don't want just any old thing going out there representing the company. So what happens after the review?
Well, that's where the big decision comes in. The reviewer, they can either approve the post to be published or they can reject it.
And I'm guessing that's where we see different paths in this whole process.
Exactly, yeah. If it gets approved, boom, it moves on to actually being published on whichever social media platform it's meant for. But if it's rejected, the process actually sends a notification back to whoever created it with feedback on why it didn't make the cut.
And they're actually showing all of this happening in Camunda, right?
Yeah,
It's not just like a theoretical discussion.
yeah, exactly. That's what's so cool about it. They use Camunda to map out the whole process with each step represented visually so you can really see what's going on.
Yeah, I was really impressed by how they used a form right from the start to capture all the essential details of the post.
Hmm.
The title, the content, all that.
Right, that form's super important because it gathers everything. The title, the content, even which platform they're targeting, having everything organized like that, it just ensures that everything's clear and there's consistency throughout the whole process.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you can actually see how Kamada takes that information from the form and routes it through the different steps. It's pretty cool to watch it in action.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the big advantages of having a process model that's, visual like this. It's interactive, it's dynamic, it's much more powerful than just having some static list of steps.
Absolutely. They also talk about mocking the system. Can you explain what that means?
Sure. So in this specific example, they don't actually have access to post to live social media accounts, you know.
Right, right. I mean, they wouldn't want to accidentally send out test posts to a company's real followers.
Exactly, yeah. So what they're doing is they're simulating that posting action, but they're doing it within Camunda. So it's like a placeholder showing how the process would work in a real world scenario.
That's a pretty smart approach for testing and prototyping, right? I mean, you can make sure that the workflow is solid before you actually go live without the risk of messing up any real social media accounts.
Yeah, definitely. It's
You-
all about mitigating risk and making sure everything's going to run smoothly when the process actually goes live.
So far, we've been talking about humans doing the creating, humans doing the reviewing, but then they bring in AI, and that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, that's where things get really, really exciting because that's where you can really start to see the potential for automation.
So what were some of the AI-powered ideas that they explored in this video?
Well, they started with the most obvious one, which is using AI to generate the content of the posts itself. Imagine giving the AI a simple prompt like, write a LinkedIn post about our new product launch, and boom, it spits out a draft ready to go.
That's that's incredible.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing they didn't see AI as like a total replacement for humans in the content creation process, did they?
You're right. You're right. They acknowledge that AI isn't, a magic solution for every company. Like if a company has really complex branding guidelines, or maybe they're in a highly regulated industry, they probably still need a human touch to make sure everything's on point.
But even if the AI isn't, writing the whole post from scratch, they still had some other cool ideas about how it could be used, right?
Yeah, yeah. For example, they talked about using AI to polish up existing drafts that were, written by humans. It could handle things like improving grammar, refining the wording, even suggesting ways to make the post more engaging, stuff like that.
So it's like the AI is acting as a super-powered writing assistant, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can help elevate the quality of the writing, but you're still keeping that human touch and it's still aligned with the company's, unique voice and style.
Yeah. What I thought was really smart is that they didn't just, build this process model and then just call it a day. They actually stepped back and they evaluated what they created, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. They actually used specific criteria to assess the model, which I thought was a great way to show how, process design, it's really iterative, you're always improving, always refining.
So what were some of the criteria that they used? Give us an example.
Well, they looked at things like readability, making sure the model's easy to understand and follow. They looked at correctness, making sure it accurately reflects the intended workflow.
Hmm.
And of course, they considered automation potential, which we've already talked about. And then they thought about reusability. Could this model be adapted for other processes within the organization?
So it's not just a one-time solution. It's like a blueprint for streamlining all sorts of different tasks.
Precisely. And that's where their insights, I think, really broadened the discussion because they pointed out how this, relatively simple model for approving social media posts is actually very similar to approval processes that you find in lots of other areas of a business.
Oh, interesting. Like, give us some examples.
Sure. I mean, think about expense reports or vacation requests or even, content for the company website. They all follow the same basic pattern of submission, review, and then approval or rejection.
Yeah, it's that same basic flow. Huh.
Right, and that's kind of the beauty of process thinking, isn't it? It's not just about automating a single task. It's about recognizing these underlying patterns and applying a structured approach so you can improve efficiency across the board.
I like that. It's about seeing the bigger picture. So this brings up an interesting question for our listeners. What are some seemingly simple actions in your own work or even your personal life that could benefit from a more, structured and automated approach? Food for thought.
Absolutely. It's easier to just keep doing things on autopilot without ever really stopping to think, hey, is there a better way to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we send our listeners off to rethink their entire lives, let's go back to this video for a second. They use an interesting term to describe this social media posting process. They called it a support process. What did they mean by that?
Right, right. That's talking about the different types of processes that exist within an organization. So a support process, as opposed to a core process, is one that doesn't directly generate revenue or deliver the main product or service of the company.
So social media posting, while important for, marketing and brand awareness, it's not the core function of the business.
Exactly. Yeah, it supports the main goals, but it's not like the core of what they do. Think of it like the foundation of a house. You need it, but it's not the part you actually live in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. And I imagine this distinction is important because it influences how you prioritize and manage those different types of processes.
Right, absolutely, yeah. Core processes, they often get more resources, more attention because they have a direct impact on, the bottom line. But support processes, you can't neglect them either. They still need to be efficient and effective to make sure everything in the organization runs smoothly.
And in some cases, I bet a well-run support process could even be a competitive advantage.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Think about a company with an amazing onboarding process for new employees. That can be a huge help when it comes to attracting and keeping top talent.
Or a company with a really, really responsive IT support system
Yeah.
that can minimize downtime, keep people productive, and that can make a big difference in the long run.
It all adds up, right?
Right. So it's all about recognizing the value of these processes, whether they're, core or support, and then applying the right level of process thinking to optimize them.
Exactly. And that actually leads us to another important concept that they touch on in the video, which is governance.
Governance. It sounds a little intimidating, to be honest, but I get that it's got to be important for managing processes.
It might sound a bit stuffy, maybe. But basically, governance is just about setting up rules, guidelines, and controls for how processes are designed, how they're executed, and how they're monitored. It's about making sure those processes are in line with the organization's goals and strategies, the big picture.
So it's like setting up those guardrails to keep everything on track, make sure everything's, moving in the right direction.
Exactly. And the level of governance you need for a particular process, it really depends on how complex that process is and how critical it is to the business.
Okay, yeah. I imagine a simple process like the one we're talking about, approving social media posts. It wouldn't need the same level of oversight as, say, a complex financial transaction.
You got it. You don't want to bog things down with a bunch of unnecessary bureaucracy.
Right. But at the same time, you need enough control to prevent errors, mitigate risks, and make sure you're in compliance with any relevant regulations.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's another area where those custom connectors that we talked about earlier, they can really come in handy.
How so?
Well, if you need to add more checks or approvals to a process, you can often do that within the connector itself without having to, redesign the whole workflow.
That's pretty slick. So you're basically fine-tuning the level of governance without having to mess with the core functionality of the process.
You got it. It's all about finding that sweet spot, that balance between flexibility and control.
So, wow, we've covered a lot here. We talked about the basic workflow for social media posting, how it can be visualized and automated using Camunda, the potential role of AI, the whole idea of core versus support processes, and the importance of governance. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And we've also explored this really interesting concept of custom connectors and how they
Fun.
can provide this flexibility, this adaptability, and they can even kind of future-proof your processes, which is really cool. It's been a true deep dive into the whole world of process modeling.
It really has. And as we move into the next part of our discussion, I think it's important to emphasize that process thinking. It's not just for businesses, right?
Yeah.
It's a skill that can be valuable in any aspect of life.
Oh, I totally agree. Whether you're trying to organize your personal finances, plan a trip, or even just streamline your morning routine, the principles we've talked about today, they can help you be more efficient, more effective, and ultimately less stressed.
And who doesn't want that? But before we move on, there's one more intriguing thing they talked about in the video. Um, they mentioned this idea of custom connectors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a really cool part because it adds a whole new dimension of flexibility and adaptability to the process. It's like having interchangeable parts for your process.
Okay, so instead of being locked into a specific way of posting, you can swap things out as needed. That would be so helpful if you ever wanted to change how you're actually posting or if you wanted to integrate a new tool.
That's exactly it. So let's say, for example, you decide, down the line that you want to switch to a different social media management platform. With these custom connectors, you wouldn't have to redesign your whole process. You just swap out the connector that handles the actual posting.
Ah, that makes sense. So the connector's handling the technical details, while the process model, the overall model itself, that stays the same. It's still focused on the workflow and the logic. It's like a way to future-proof your process, basically.
You got it. And it's not just limited to social media posting. You could use custom connectors for any process that involves, external systems or tools. Like imagine having connectors for different payment gateways in an e-commerce checkout process or connectors for different shipping providers in a fulfillment workflow.
Yeah, the possibilities are pretty much endless. It really highlights how powerful process thinking can be
Mm.
when it comes to creating these, adaptable and scalable systems that can evolve as your needs change. So what does all this mean for our listeners? Why should they care about all this?
Well, even if you're not building process models yourself, professionally, just understanding how this kind of thinking can be applied to everyday tasks that can be really, really powerful. It's about recognizing patterns and then applying a structured approach to just improve efficiency across the board, whether it's in your work or even your personal life.
It's about making things run more smoothly and,
Yeah.
and freeing up your time for the things that really matter, right?
Yeah.
Now, before we send everyone off to start mapping out like every aspect of their lives, let's go back to something else they mentioned in the video. They kept talking about this social media posting process as a support process.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that actually means in a business context?
Sure, yeah. It's basically about the different types of processes that you find within an organization. So a support process, it's different from a core process. A support process doesn't directly generate revenue or it doesn't deliver the main product or service of the company.
Okay. So social media is important, obviously, for marketing and brand awareness, but it's not like the primary function of most businesses.
Exactly. It supports the company's, main objectives, but it's not the core of what they do. Other examples of support processes could be things like HR onboarding or IT support or accounting, things like that.
I see. And I imagine this distinction between between core and support processes. That's got to be important when you're thinking about how to prioritize things, how to allocate resources.
Absolutely. Yeah. Core processes, they tend to get, more attention, more investment because they have the direct impact on the bottom line. But support processes, you can't just neglect them. They still need to be efficient. They need to be effective to keep the whole organization running smoothly.
And I bet in some cases a really well-run support process, that could even be a competitive advantage for a company.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, think about a company with a fantastic onboarding process for new employees. That can make it so much easier to attract and keep really great people.
Or a company with a super responsive IT support team, that can minimize downtime, keep employees productive, which ultimately affects, the bottom line.
Totally. It's a perfect example of how a support process can have that indirect impact on revenue and the overall success of the company.
Yeah. So it's really all about recognizing the value of each process, whether it's your core or support, and then applying that process thinking, that right level of process thinking to get the most out of it.
Exactly. And that leads us to another really important concept they talk about in the video, which is governance.
Governance. I think a lot of people hear that word and their eyes kind of glaze over a little bit,
Mm.
but I get that it's an important part of managing processes.
Yeah, it can sound a little intimidating, a little bureaucratic, but basically governance is just about setting up, clear rules, guidelines, and controls for how these processes are designed, how they're implemented, and how they're monitored. It's about making sure that those processes are aligned with the overall goals and strategies of the organization.
So it's like putting up those guardrails, like we were talking about,
Mm.
to keep things on track, making sure that uh, everything's moving in the right direction.
Exactly. And the level of governance you need for a specific process, that really depends on, how complex the process is and how important it is to the business.
Right. So a simple process like the one we've been talking about, approving social media posts, I mean, that wouldn't need the same level of oversight as, say, a really complex process like handling financial transactions.
Right. Exactly. You don't want to just bog things down in bureaucracy. You want to make sure things can move forward efficiently.
Right, right. But at the same time, there needs to be enough control to prevent errors,
Yeah.
minimize risks, make sure that you're in compliance with any relevant regulations.
For sure. And that's another area where those custom connectors that we were talking about before, that's where they can really come in handy.
Okay, how so?
Well, if you need to, add additional checks or maybe approvals to a process, you can often do that within the connector itself without having to redesign the entire workflow.
I see, I see. So you're essentially fine-tuning the level of governance without having to,
Yeah.
disrupt the core functionality of the process.
You got it. It's about finding that sweet spot between flexibility and control.
So we've really covered a lot of ground here. We talked about the basics of this workflow, how it can be visualized and automated using Camunda, the potential for AI, this whole distinction between core and support processes, and the importance of governance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have, and we've also explored this really fascinating concept of custom connectors and how they can add, flexibility, adaptability, and even kind of future-proof these processes. It's really been a deep dive into the world of process modeling.
It really have. And as we kind of wrap things up here, I think it's important to emphasize that this process thinking, it's not just for businesses, right?
Mm.
It's a valuable skill that you can use
Yeah.
in pretty much any aspect of life.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, whether you're trying to manage your personal finances, plan a trip, or even just, streamline your morning routine, the principles we've been talking about, they can help you to be more efficient, more effective, and ultimately less stressed.
And who doesn't want that? But before we send everybody off to start mapping out, their entire lives, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on from the video.
Oh, okay. What's that?
They talked about how this approach to process modeling, they said it can be used to create a truly connected enterprise. What exactly do they mean by that?
Yeah, that's a good question. They're really highlighting the fact that in a lot of organizations, processes tend to be siloed. Different departments might have their own way of doing things, and those processes often aren't very well integrated.
Yeah. which can create like inefficiencies and roadblocks. And imagine it can also lead to a lot of frustration for employees, just trying to get things done.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's like having different parts of a machine trying to operate independently without any, communication or coordination. It just doesn't work very well.
Right, right. So when they talk about a connected enterprise, they're talking about breaking down those silos and creating a more unified, more streamlined way of working.
Exactly. It's about having processes that flow smoothly across departments with clear communication and handoffs between teams. That makes the whole organization more efficient and more responsive.
And it's not just about improving internal operations either, right? I mean, a connected enterprise is also better equipped to deal with changes in the external environment, whether it's shifts in customer demand, new technologies, or even changing regulations.
Yeah, that's a really important point. In today's business world, things are changing so fast. Agility and adaptability are essential.
So how does this idea of a connected enterprise, how does it relate to the specific example of social media posting that we've been talking about?
Okay, so in this case, a connected enterprise approach, it might involve integrating the social media posting process with other relevant systems, like the CRM system where the customer data is stored, or maybe the marketing automation platform that handles email campaigns.
So instead of social media just operating in isolation, it becomes part of a more comprehensive and integrated marketing strategy.
Exactly. And that allows for a much more cohesive and effective approach to engaging with customers and building brand awareness.
What I find really interesting is that this concept of a connected enterprise, it really aligns with the idea of custom connectors that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, you're right. Those connectors, they're really the glue that holds everything together, allowing different systems to communicate and share information, without any hiccups.
It's like having a universal language that all the different parts of the organization can understand.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And the more connectors you have, the more connected and integrated your enterprise becomes.
This all sounds great in theory, but I'm sure some of our listeners are probably wondering, how do you actually put these ideas into practice? Like, where do you even start?
Yeah, that's a fair question. It can feel a little overwhelming if you're thinking about like transforming a whole organization.
Especially if you're not, in a leadership position where you can make those kinds of big sweeping changes.
But the good news is you don't have to do everything at once. You can start small. Even small incremental improvements can make a big difference over time.
So what would be a good first step for somebody who wants to, bring a little bit more of this process thinking into their work or even their personal life?
Well, one really simple but powerful exercise is to just start by mapping out your current processes. This could be for anything, how you handle email, how you manage projects, even how you plan your weekly meals. It doesn't have to be anything complicated.
So it's about taking a step back and really just looking at how you're doing things instead of just operating on autopilot.
Right, exactly. Once you've kind of visualized your process, then you can start to identify, okay, where are the bottlenecks? Are there any steps that I could automate? Are there any opportunities to streamline the flow of information?
Just about applying some critical thinking and looking for ways to make things more efficient, more effective.
And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about making those small changes that can really add up to big results over time.
This brings up a question I've been thinking about. We've talked a lot about how these process modeling techniques and tools, they can be used within an organization. But could they also be used to improve collaboration between different organizations?
Yeah.
That's a really interesting question, and it's definitely becoming more and more relevant as businesses become more interconnected. Traditionally, process modeling has really focused on optimizing those internal operations, but there's a growing awareness now that these principles can also apply to external collaborations, like those between suppliers, partners, or even, competitors within an industry ecosystem.
I can see how that would be really valuable. Imagine if different organizations could seamlessly share information and coordinate their activities, leading to, a more efficient supply chain, for example.
Exactly. Or think about how much easier it would be to collaborate on joint projects or initiatives if everyone involved had, a shared understanding of the process and how their individual contributions fit into the bigger picture.
It could change the way we work together, both within and across organizational boundaries.
Yeah. And the tools and technologies that we've been talking about, like Camunda and these custom connectors, they're well suited for this kind of this inter-organizational collaboration.
Because they provide that common platform for communication, coordination, and process automation, regardless of the specific systems or technologies that each organization is using.
Right. It's all about breaking down those barriers and creating a more fluid and collaborative environment.
It's pretty exciting to think about the potential here.
Yeah.
It's like taking all those benefits of process thinking that we've been talking about,
Yeah.
and extending them to a whole new level.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it really aligns with those broader trends that we're seeing in the business world, like the rise of platform-based ecosystems and the increasing importance of collaboration and partnerships.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that process thinking isn't just about optimizing those individual tasks or even in entire organizations. It's a powerful approach that can really transform the way we work together,
Yeah.
on a much broader scale.
And as we move into a future where collaboration and interconnectedness become even more critical, I
Yeah.
think this idea of applying process thinking to those external partnerships, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, it's definitely a space to watch, and I'm sure we'll be diving deeper into it in future episodes. But for now, I think we've given our listeners plenty to think about.
We have. We've explored the technical side of process modeling and automation, the broader implications for businesses and individuals, and we've even touched on the potential for interorganizational collaboration. It's been a pretty comprehensive deep dive.
It really has, and as always, we encourage our listeners to keep exploring these topics on their own.
The more we understand about these tools and techniques, the better equipped we'll be to use them for good and to shape a future where technology works for us, not the other way around.
Well said. On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive. But before we do, we're going to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Mhm.
We've talked a lot about the potential benefits of process thinking and automation, but it's important to remember that technology, it's a tool, and it should be used responsibly.
I completely agree. As we embrace these new technologies, we need to be mindful of their potential impact on people and society. It's about finding that balance between efficiency and human well-being, making sure that automation enhances our lives without compromising our values.
That's a really crucial point to keep in mind as we navigate this increasingly automated world.
And it's a topic we'll definitely be exploring more in upcoming episodes. But for now, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of process modeling.
Thanks for joining us. We've covered a lot in this deep dive, from the nuts and bolts of process modeling to this big idea of connected enterprises. We even touched on how all of this could impact collaboration between different organizations. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And I think one of the key takeaways here is that process thinking, it's not just about automating tasks, right? It's about understanding how things work, figuring out where you can improve things, and creating systems that are more efficient, more effective, and more adaptable.
Yeah, it's about working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Whether you're, running a business, managing a team, or even just trying to get a handle on your personal to-do list.
Exactly. And as we wrap up here, I think it's worth, emphasizing that process thinking, it's a journey. It's not a one-time fix or magic bullet.
Right. It's about constantly looking at how you're doing things, refining them, and improving them. Because, the world's always changing.
Yeah.
And our processes need to change with it.
Yeah. I like to think of it as a mindset, It's a way of approaching problems and focusing on finding the best solutions.
And that mindset can be really, really empowering, because it gives you the tools and frameworks to really tackle complex problems and create positive change.
Absolutely.
So as you go about your day, we encourage you to start looking at the world through this lens of process thinking. You might be surprised at the opportunities you find to streamline things, optimize them, even innovate.
And remember, it's not about, becoming a robot or getting lost in all this bureaucracy. It's about finding that balance between structure and flexibility. You can use the power of systems thinking without forgetting about the human element.
Yeah. Well said. Well, that about wraps it up for this deep dive into the world of process modeling and automation. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little inspiring.
We did too. Thanks for joining us.